and welcome to our webinar. My name is Roger Tower. I'm the CMO of CREC. With me is Mikolos.
I'm Managing Director of CREC, and William from FRE.
Yeah, Bill Lang.
I've been with Cannabis Real Estate Consultants about 4 years, managing a lot of our technology platforms. And it's really exciting to be introducing this new opportunity, first of its kind, not the first for me. I run a koi auction website as well, the biggest one in the US. So I know a thing or two about auctions, and those are normally $200 to $1,000 in purchases. So, we're talking a much bigger item here with a whole lot more complications than buying a fish online. And so it's really exciting for us to have the auction experts of FRE, the future of real estate here, who have partnered with us to build out this platform and put it for the niche of cannabis. Some of you may have already participated in real estate auctions. So at the beginning, we're going to go over a little bit of what makes a real estate auction before we get into the details of the cannabis real estate side of it and the particulars of bidding on this platform. I hope that this webinar also teaches you how to use the platform a little bit more. If you have more questions about getting involved, please follow up with me, Mikolos, or William to give you a demo and one-on-one instructions of how you can participate and bid. So William, please give us an introduction to real estate auctions.
Sure. Bill Lang here. I'm with the LFC group of companies. We have offices in Southern California, in Madrid, Spain, and also in Dubai in the United Arab Emirates. We've been in the property auction business for over 40 years, the last 17 of which we've been online with this website. This website in relationship to CREC is kind of a perfect match because we have a program that, unlike other auction companies, allows for contingencies, and we're going to talk about that as we get into this a little more.
Excellent. So tell us why properties end up at auctions and what some of the benefits are that you find.
Sure. Auctions create a sense of urgency. Everybody likes a deal, and I like a deal, you like a deal. And you're usually trolling, what we call trolling, with a low minimum or opening bid. That's the beginning point. Typically, our auctions have a reserve price, an unpublished reserve, sometimes called a release price. And that is what creates a sense of urgency. People want to get involved in order to get that deal. There's also a date certain for the sale because you're working towards a deadline. And so people need to get involved now. Otherwise, they're going to miss that opportunity that we talked about. And finally, if they're conducted properly, like a Sotheby's or a Christie's, there's a reason they've been doing auctions for over 200 years. And that's because they get more money for their clients at the end of the day. So those three things and others are why you would want to consider an auction.
And now in working with FRE, could you tell us a little bit more about your experiences and what you're bringing to the table? I know one of the things that we had talked about is that you have less auctions than some of the other options out there.
Well, we're more of a boutique operation here. We're not necessarily after volume. We're made up of actually 3 companies. We have an advertising agency. We have an internet technology company which manages this site and a number of ancillary sites that we call semi-white label sites. And that's been going on for 4 or 5 years now.
Can we click back to the CREC website? I'd like to show the Arlington Heights.
Okay, well, we can do that. Let's go back and take a look at. This is a site that we developed for CREC, and we're just in the process of launching it. So this particular property in Arlington Heights, we're going to have to go in through a different way, but this particular property in Arlington Heights just went in to escrow, and we'll go take a look at it. You can see on this one that this is not a cannabis property, but Roger liked the story on it. The seller on this property was asking $1.5 million for it, and it's been on the market for almost 2 years. with a local brokerage. There's a lot of properties like this in the Arlington, this is outside of Chicago. There's a number of properties somewhat like this, office properties in the area. And so he had to differentiate himself from the other properties. Sperry Commercial, our partner on this one, decided to take it to auction. And that's what we did. And the first time around, we had lots of interest in it with the advertising campaign, but the first time around it didn't trade. And so we did it a second time. And the second time we had 3 bidders. And the high bidder was in the 800,000 area. So now you say, okay, well, he wanted $1.5 million, but now you're at 800,000. But what was really happening is the public was deciding what this property was really worth in this COVID situation that we're in right now. And we took almost 3,000 hits to the website from interested parties. We had about 50 registrations, and our high bid was in the 800,000 range. And so there was an educational process for the seller that, well, I know I would like to have gotten $1.5 million, but quite frankly, I'm happy to get 800,000. We just went into escrow on this property.
Yeah, I think that is an example of some of what we see in the cannabis industry as well. People expecting a high price for it and not being able to make the sale because they're holding out for the higher price. And one of the comments you had said before is that with the auction, the buyers determine the price.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, that's true. We use that saying around here quite a bit. It's buyers determine value, not sellers. And so, especially when you're dealing with a unique property like a cannabis property, that license and the expertise that CREC is bringing to the table, it really is a value add. So the auction is a great way to determine what that value add is.
Great. Let's go back to the CREC site.
Okay.
And Mick, can you tell us a little bit more about how this is all going to work with cannabis real estate?
Sure. So one of the things that we do, just a quick introduction to CREC is we've been, working in the cannabis industry on the legal side of the white market since Prop 215 and Prop 64. And so we have an experience in dealing with entitlements, understanding work that needs to be done in land development, understanding all the intricacies of what licensing looks like on the back end for these properties, whether they're already licensed, whether they're viable, whether they're edgeable, whether in application. All of that due diligence is being clarified in these discussions, and anything to do with the asset purchase of anything licensed would be handled as part of the auction, but not directly at the same time as the property, right? So all of that information will be provided so that you can understand at what point in the process this property is at. And properties that are either land or commercial can be at very different points in that process, depending on where it's at, which municipality and county, as each one of them has different regulations.
Now, Mick, what types of situations are you coming up with that you find are appropriate?
For an auction, the most important thing is really bringing value or maximum value to a particular asset that someone may have a unclear understanding of the valuation, or an unfortunately skewed number from past sales that may have happened, a year or 2 years ago, that were maybe involved with different factors. And so people do not have an actual idea as to what their property is valued. I mean, a good example of this, there are some licenses that can actually have negative values. And I don't think some people understand that. But if you're paying more to operate in a municipality, it doesn't really have much license value. And so what we're trying to do is to bring, the real idea of what the value of this real estate is with any sort of entitlements that are on.
Yeah, and can you talk more about how we are confirming that these are eligible properties?
Sure. So we've done a breakdown of every single municipality in the state, and we're very well versed in other states as well, and we have technologies to tap into the viability of the particular parcel or the building depending on the regulations in the cities. So we're able to double, triple check and certify these properties to make sure that they are compliant, eligible, or aren't going to be running into any sensitive use issues in municipalities. So we are doing all the back end due diligence that's necessary, and we're doing it in an expedient fashion because of the technology that we've built. So all of that comes with the due diligence package as part of one of these deals.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that made us most exciting about this is that we are able to combine the CREC portal technology and CREC compliance to be able to offer these valid, viable properties, and people are able to then get them at a lower price than potentially were expected before. So can you tell me any other expectations or benefits that you're seeing of why we choose auctions?
Well, I think the marketing perspective for an auction and the type of individuals that use auctions are usually a little bit more different than the run-of-the-mill people that are using Google search, right? So you're going to get a more fine-tuned, how would I say it, demographic. And of course, the ability to find the value in an asset through the market deciding through professionals that are making investments in these assets and acquiring them, what the value of that asset is the most key factor in this. And of course, the ability to specifically target through some of these marketing things that William will be speaking about right now, which is how you find that buyer, how do we find the right people, and how do we get them to start putting bids on these properties.
Yeah, and I want to circle back around a little bit more about how the auction works and what eligible properties might be. Passing it over to you, to William, to talk a little bit more about the marketing side of things.
Sure. Every property is different. Some have a local market, some have a regional market, and some have an international market. Unlike traditional brokerage, in our world, we're going out and hunting that target buyer, and we call it targeted marketing. And again, every deal is different. Sometimes you'll do it through YouTube with a video. Sometimes we've even done it with apps. There's an ad that was run out of our Dubai office. I have no idea what it says, but it was a very successful and iconic ad. There's no telephone number. Now, why wouldn't you want to, every broker wants a telephone number because they want to talk to those prospects. But in our world, what we would prefer they do initially is go up to the website, FRE, and register in order to see information. And why do they want to register and see the information? Because of that low opening bid and the fact that they might be able to buy one of the top floors in the Burj Khalifa at pennies on the dollar. And so every deal is a little bit different, but no telephone numbers. Get them on the website and then start working them through different levels till you bring them to the table, buy the property.
Excellent. And based on our conversation, I was surprised by the amount of advertising options that FRE also brings to the table. And as a marketer myself, it's great to see all these different options. They do look really nice. Love the boat down there.
Yeah, that was a condominium in Newport Beach. Condominium right behind that boat. That sign brought in the buyer right there.
So then I did see a bunch of videos also associated with your listings as well.
Yeah. Let me take you over and show you this for just a second, because this really differentiates what CREC and FRE is bringing to the table. The typical auction company provides what we call the classic auction. And that is, you do your due diligence, you show up at the auction, you bid for it, and you close within typically 30 days, sometimes 45 days. And many times it's all cash, which limits the buyers that you're dealing with right there. We offer two programs, and the one that we use the most nowadays, almost 75% of our sales, is our Auction Plus program. And Auction Plus allows for contingencies. And when you're dealing with complex properties like cannabis properties, I can tell you they have contingencies. And it's one of the reasons, probably the main reason we've linked up, because we have a program that allows, for instance, you want it contingent upon that license being able to be transferred or something taking place. And that's our Auction Plus program.
Hey, Roger, you muted.
Sorry, my dog was getting excited earlier.
No problem.
Could you show us the bidding screen for contingency? So
Yes,
for example.
I'm going to take you over and actually show you a property. This one's in Glendale, California, and this is what we call a property profile page, and this is set up page, and you can see creating that sense of urgency is this countdown clock. So if you don't get involved in 15 days and 2 hours and 10 minutes, you're going to miss this tremendous opportunity. So what's that opportunity? Well, the opportunity is a minimum opening bid of 2.4 million. Now we have no intention of selling the property for that price, but if you gave me an offer of 2.4 million, that'd be a valid bid. The system would take it. We're also suggesting that this is a $5 million property. So that gives you kind of benchmarks on each side, opening bid, and the fact that we feel the property is worth 5 million. Mr. Buyer, you tell us what you think it's worth now. That is done to a page that looks like this. And the beauty of this program is tell me what your contingencies are. If you want a zone change or if you want a 1031 exchange, tell me that. That you can see that if it's a finance contingency, tell me a lot about yourself because we're going to really vet you. If you're going to buy a $5 million property, we want to know where the cash is. So that's all going to be done in advance before we allow you to bid on the property. And then you're going to agree to the terms and conditions, and then you're going to submit. It's about how easy it is. You can see that we're providing information on the property. Nice, of course, certainly nice pictures, lots of them, and information. And typically we will provide a video. Now, the reason the video is important is when you're dealing with people out of the area. I'm just going to open this one up and show you what it would look like. The idea here is that we're zooming in on, is a very short, you never want these to be more than a couple minutes long, but you're zooming in on the subject property. So this is your starting point. And then you're very quickly going to show where that property is in relationship to landmarks and roadways, freeways that people can relate to. So if you're dealing in Cherry Valley out in the Beaumont area, you want to show where that property is in relationship to the 10 freeway, because it's really close. And for someone who may not be familiar with the area, that'd be very helpful. So right now we're zooming around the local area, and then we're going to go up to 10,000 feet very quickly. And then we're going to show where it is in relationship to Los Angeles and see Dodger Stadium over here. So anybody that's not familiar with Glendale, and I grew up in Southern California and I'm familiar with Glendale, but this map, this tour really puts it into perspective of exactly where it is. And then we're going to take it over to the ocean.
Wow. Yeah, Bill, I'm loving this video, and I'm going to have to follow up with you after this call.
Yeah, we usually will produce one for every property, even the small little ones, because they are so effective. We've literally sold properties off YouTube videos. We did one in Southern California and Dana Point area, was in Japanese. We put it in Japanese and we sold it to the buyer who, this is a very high-end home, to a buyer who had never looked at it. He'd never looked at the home in person. And he bought it off the YouTube video. So we're big believers in videos.
Awesome. Then let's dive into the platform a little bit more. You've got an event manager and a quarterback that they work with. You work with some of the larger institutions and banks and brokerages. You maintain sensitive information and security. Could you dive into those a little more?
Yeah. This is a document vault. Most of the documents that you register, you get to look at them. But we have 5 levels of security. The 5th level is really extensive. At the 5th level, the seller has to give us written permission to release the information. And that's usually when you're dealing with lease or proprietary financial information. But there's 5 levels of this. And what happens is when you come in from the outside off of some type of stimulation ad, and you say, okay, I'm interested in the terms and conditions of sale. That's the one they usually look at first. In order to open it, a little pop-up will come up and it'll say you have to register. And a registration for us is a level 2 in our tracking system. And once they register, that allows them to look at the document. Now you're a level 3. And when they get to be a level 3, the event manager over here, in this case, Patrick, find Patrick down here.
Is on the bottom right of the screen.
Yeah, there he goes. Patrick is going to be on the telephone to you regardless of where you are, and he's just going to chat with you. And if he likes the conversation and he thinks you're a potential bidder based on what you're telling him, he's going to give you a C grade in his tracking system. And if he thinks you're a tire kicker, he's going to give you an F grade. And then Mikolos is going to get involved at that point, because if you get a C grade, he's going to be all over you. We might take 10,000 clicks. I mean, this is the internet, but we're lucky if we had 50 individuals who went all the way to a registration and got a C grade. And then if they visit the property with Mikolos, he's going to bring them up to a B grade. And if they eventually bid on the property, they're going to be an A grade person. So what it allows is our advertising agency in real time to track not only the cost effectiveness of the advertising campaign, but also track the quality of the leads that the advertising campaign is producing. And they can do it in real time. If the ad's working, we want to do some more of it. If it's not working, we don't want to spend any more money on it.
Could you tell us a little bit more about how you got to the required bid deposit?
A bid deposit, in the old days, we would require money be transferred by wire transfer into a third-party escrow company. But over the last few years, we've been doing credit card holds, much like when you reserve a room at the Hyatt Regency. They don't really take your money. They just confirm that you have a credit line of X amount of dollars on your credit card. And more importantly, you are who you say you are. You're John Smith. You're not some young fellow from Palo Alto that's just screwing around on the website. Nobody will give you their name and credit card information. We never see it. Third-party vendor sees it unless they're serious. So what happens is they put that money up, then we know we have a real player, and we're going to take them seriously. And we will not allow that bid to go real until we verified that credit card information. That's how that works.
Oh, that's excellent. And the video you sent was great. I still keep thinking about it. But people want to go see one of these in person. I know it's a short timeline, but do you have people still doing showings? Is there a process for that?
The actual property showings?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all the properties that we have on this website, because we're based in Southern California, either that or Europe or the Middle East, we very seldom see these properties in person. If it's a really big ticket one, or one that I find particularly interesting, I've got one right now in Marysville, Michigan. It is a former former power plant. I'm going to go see that one because Thomas Edison actually designed that plant, and my client tore it down. They're a remediation company. They tore it down. So that one I'm going to go see. But typically we don't go see them. We rely on our broker partner, and that's, in this case, is going to be Mikolos and his people and his broker partners that he's working with that are going to be conducting the actual property showings. Very critical component, just like the old days, boots on the ground. You got to go face to face with these buyers at some point. Either that, or you're very seldom you're going to close them.
Excellent. Yeah. Very exciting. Mick, is there anything that's coming to mind?
Sure. So obviously, as you go through the different tiers of classification and due diligence, that's when all the details start coming out as to licensing, entitlements, and all that stuff. So that's where those documents will live. So it's very important to get yourself up to a C grade as quickly as possible so that you can start taking the deepest dive into these opportunities. And obviously, when you start speaking to me, just know that our team, everyone at CREC or any of the brokers we work with in other states, we're very versed in cannabis. So you're usually going to want to either have an attorney that understands cannabis, or your consultant, or you yourself, if you understand the rules intimately, on the line, because we're going to be a fountain of information that's going to help you understand this opportunity much more quicker and in depth than a traditional real estate company. I mean, cannabis is all CREC does. It's all we've been doing for 4 years.
Got a great question coming from the audience I also wanted to cover. Registered buyer agents, and how can commercial real estate brokers be involved on the seller or buyer side?
Sure. There's a document on we encourage broker participation. I mean, we're a very broker friendly site. So consequently, it's just like conventional brokerage. You go up to the site, you get the broker participation form, you fill it in, you put your client's name on it. And then in the terms and conditions of sale, it describes how much you're going to get paid. And that's really up to our broker partner. And that's how simple it is. If your name's on the broker participation form, when that property closes, you get paid out of escrow.
And then to touch on that, CREC always does 50% participation on buyer site. So if you're bringing in a buyer, 50% of any listing that we have on this particular platform or anything we transact on is on the table. We're here to get deals done for our clients.
Bill, do you have any other examples for commercial agents?
Yeah, every agent has this. They have land. Some of it's cannabis land and some of it's not. But this is a good example. This is our classic auction. Again, we only do about 25% of these nowadays. But just to show you what it does, you get live bidding with the classic auction. So this particular 53 acres of dirt in Orland, California, north of Sacramento, nothing special about it. It's just former ag land. In fact, it might be ag land again for all I know. And you can see that we started out probably with a minimum bid of 199. And then we got to the initial bid deadline, which was typically it's 45 days. Marketing campaign gets you to that initial bid deadline. We published the highest number up on the website, in this case, 219,000. And then we open it up into day-to-day bidding. And you can see on this property, we ended up LAN at 5. That's the first 3 letters of somebody's last name, or the buyer's last name, at 560. So it doesn't really matter. There's no people think there's a correlation between the opening bid and the end of the day bid. There really isn't. The only way you can go wrong with this program, because these are all reserve sales. In other words, the seller is not obligated to take the deal unless we hit their release price. If we don't hit their release price, then they have the option of counter offering if they want, or they can turn it down. I can't remember having one like that. Usually they'll counter offer. But you can see at the end of this day on this property, we're at 560. We took that up well over 150%. This is the classic auction. And this is what most auction companies, hopefully they enjoy these same results, but this is what most auction companies offer. The only thing they offer, even the big guys, because when you get into contingencies, it's much more fiddly for the auction company and their broker partner, such as cannabis contingencies. But at the end of the day, that's how you sell these more complex properties, is with a program like our Auction Plus. I think we're the only ones that are offering it in the business right now.
And are there any sign-up differences for agent brokers?
No, it's very simple. You just go up to either the CREC website. If you're going into brokers, you can sign up right here. And it's a simple 3-minute process, and then you're in. And then if you got a buyer, you're going to communicate with Miklos, and we're off and running.
Can you scroll down just a little bit more to show those 4 situations? You went past it, go up a little higher. So I want to go back into the benefits a little bit more, and people might be on the fence, and go up higher. Might be on the fence of why they might want to do an auctions, and I want to just continue to help explain what makes a property valuable or valid for an auction. So I'll send that both to Bill or Mick.
Mick, you want to do it?
Sure. I mean, understanding the value of these assets is probably one of the least understood things of our industry right now, right? So understanding how to put this in front of people and help the market determine the value is probably one of the easiest ways that wouldn't require you to to pay an appraiser that may not know what he's doing to value your property. And in a more effective way, because you're actually, getting two birds with one stone, you're actually getting the buyers to put in what they feel that value of an asset is. And the amount of people that are going to start putting, let's say offers on these auctions are going to be very diverse, all the way from, some guy that wants to start off to a multi-state operator. And so you're going to get a very, very diverse pool of investor investing in these or putting offers on these unique properties that are eligible for cannabis. And you're going to become well aware of where that value is depending on the different clientele. And all of that information is going to be visible to you as a seller as well. And of course, to us, seeing all this information come in, I think it's really one of the more ingenious ways of valuing these things, other than someone just taking us at our word that, even as professionals in this space, ultimately it's the buyer that sets the price. It just is. And that's what it's going to boil down to in this platform.
Now, Bill, are there certain properties or examples where you just found that they weren't really a good option for auction?
Well, you can auction anything, but where it somewhat becomes problematic, what makes this whole thing work is advertising and marketing. And the advertising market, unlike a typical broker where you put it up in the multiple listing service and you wait for another broker to bring in the buyer, which is problematic. In our world, we go out and hunt for that buyer, and that costs money, and the seller pays that. We'll propose what we would like to have, and then the seller will tell us what we can have. And that's unlike traditional brokerage. We'll put any property up on this website for $1,000, but $1,000 doesn't buy you very much. We'll be very straightforward about where the money will be spent. It's not a profit center for us, but it's what makes this program work. You've got to advertise. You've got to advertise. If you don't advertise, it's like holding a party and not sending out invitations.
And now, Bill, you say that from many years of experience. Can you tell us a little bit more about your history? I don't think we've talked about that yet.
About the, say it again?
You personally, you speak from experience. Could you tell us a little bit more?
Yeah, when I sell my own properties, I auction them. And you gotta believe in what you're doing. But I think I get more money out of them by auctioning them as opposed to traditional MLS. They still go into MLS. In fact, all of our properties, we use the usual suspects, the LoopNets, the Brevitas, and the CRECs. We use all those platforms to propose to advertise the properties, but a lot more, but just a lot more. For instance, the YouTube video. Some of the brokerages out there use a YouTube video, but when I sell my own properties, I'm a big video guy.
We have a question from the audience that I got a little clarification on. Does the auction company bid on behalf of the seller, or is it not allowed?
That's a great question. You're hitting my buzzer. There are companies out there, and one of them is the 800-pound gorilla that's turned into the 800-pound gorilla. I won't mention their name, but they were just acquired by CoStar, which is King Kong. And they bid in, and they used to bid in and not even disclose it. And I've talked to many buyers and participants that really didn't know that there was an algorithm bidding against them. And then finally, the state of California came out, I think it was California, and said, you can't do that anymore in California. So they've kind of changed their ways. But still, it's a dirty little secret in the industry. It's called shill bidding. And it's pretty prevalent. We do not do that, and we never have.
And on my COI website, there's something called proxy bidding, where you can bid a max bid of $500, but if the price is only $250, it'll bid for you until you get to that price. Is that a feature on this?
All right, Roger. I didn't know you were an auction guy. This is new to me. So proxy bidding, I don't believe in it, and the reason I don't believe in it is I want to keep the buyers engaged. And you'll know with proxy bidding, a guy goes in like an eBay, and he'll say, okay, I'm willing to go $100 for that, whatever. He puts in $100 and then he kind of forgets about it and goes away, and he hopes he gets it for something less than $100. But the proxy bidding will bid it up to $100, and then when somebody else bids it in at 101, that guy's out. I want to have that individual engaged. We do what we call last call bidding, and last call bidding requires you to stay engaged with your computer. We used to do it last call indefinitely, day-to-day bidding, as long as a bid was placed on Monday before 5 p.m. It extended the bid deadline until Tuesday, and we went day-to-day as long as 1 or 2 or 10 bids. And then we had 2 doctors that got involved in a property in San Diego, 2 guys that weren't used to losing. And the bidding went on for 32 days, and these guys were just glued to their computers. Finally, the wife of the guy in New York called us and said, please do something to stop. My husband's obsessed with this. Do something to stop this sale because it's ruining our marriage. And so we limit it now to 5 days. It goes 5 days, and then we'll take it over to hour. I think the record is 13 hours of hour bidding. So it's exciting to watch, and it's competitive, and it's honest, and it's just a good process.
And maybe slightly addicting.
Yes, it is addicting. People like to win. And they do get into it.
You talked about a closing ratio on our call.
Yes. Yeah, we run about a 60% closing ratio. It depends on what it is. Some properties, we're on a roll in Canada right now. About the last dozen properties in a row have closed. It depends on what the property is and who is selling it. When we're doing bank work, which has no bottom line, in other words, they have no mortgage, it's right up, it's close to 100%. The only reason we don't close is if we have a title problem, or U.S. bankruptcy work. That typically closes. Typically, we will have a closing issue when the true value determined by the auction is below the release price, and the release price is determined by the encumbrance. In other words, the seller owes $1.8 million on the property, and our high bid is $1.3 million, and he just can't write the check or doesn't want to, and that's typically when we don't close.
Now, Mick, are there other types of properties cannabis-wise that are coming to mind? We've talked about land being a good option. Obviously, distressed assets could be too.
Yeah, there's a lot of distressed assets out there in cannabis. A lot of half-finished projects, projects that need final build out. I mean, we could go all day. I mean, there's projects all the way from, $2-3 million all the way to $70-80 million projects that would be perfect for this platform. People would have a list of inventory, what's there, go through all of it, figure out their valuation, figure out, do a tour, figure out how much they're going to need to finish it off. And at that point, they would come up with their bids. So, I mean, this is the perfect platform for someone to do it in a transparent way. And if the marketing is right, like William alluded to, you'll get all the right players to make those bids on those properties. But they're far and wide across the full spectrum, all the way from, manufacturing, distro license, delivery licenses, retail deliveries. Every opportunity I can think of could go on this platform. And as we get more into it, I hope in the future, maybe we could just do assets that are businesses, not just real estate based assets, because there are a lot of those in this industry as well. It's just a different system with a lot less layers of protection that we need to take a deep dive into.
Right. Yeah, I want to clarify that currently this is only real estate that is being auctioned. The licensing and business can be handled through CREC compliance.
Right.
And we got another question from the audience of, has a cannabis property or business been sold through this auction? If so, can you provide detail? Come back to us in 2 months, 3 months. I look forward to saying yes. This is the official launch of this platform, and we are still looking for 1 or 2 more to join our launch. We have a few that are going to be coming out in the next couple of weeks. And if you're on our newsletter, you'll get the notification that the properties are being listed. This is the first cannabis auction type site that I am aware of. Maybe there's someone who's done it once before, but I think this is really something new and revolutionary that we're working on to help people get the funds they're looking for and be able to make the transactions happen, which is, a daily headache in our world, is the complexities of the transactions in the cannabis industry. We're continuing to offer new opportunities to handle these challenges. And Mick, what I was thinking when you were describing was, if any cannabis property could end up being sold this way, what is it that's going to trigger in someone's head that they start saying, okay, well, auction probably is a good option for me? Is it a timing? Is it a price?
I think it's sometimes transparency. I don't think you're going to come to an auction, especially to, FRE and ourselves, with a property that doesn't have a clean bill of health that can actually transfer or prove that it has some sort of worth, right? If there is anything hidden on these deals, we're very good at finding them, and I think a perfect example of this is our website. We deal with tens of thousands of inquiries a month, and we only have 100 or so listings on the website, and it's because we need everything clarified. We are not going to be doing deals with things that aren't clear, and there is no due diligence behind it. And I think that's one of the ways that auctions do very well is they cut through all the BS and put forth the actual facts of an opportunity in property, title wise, debts, all those documentations are in there. And I think that's going to be the major trigger, that the trust and clarity of the multiple layers of professionalism attached to a system that allows people to make a bid is probably going to be the most attractive reason to put things on an auction, is because it cuts through the question marks of whether this thing is actually for sale or not. Because I've seen some of those too. People are taking bids, but they don't sell, even if they get what they're asking for. They're just fishing the market to try to push the price up. And I think that what we need is just clarity in this industry with some sort of, trigger that makes things move to the next step, which is actual closing of this opportunity. I think those are the biggest assets. And of course, we're always looking for new buyers. And I think being able to advertise direct to those consumers is something that, we're not going to shy away from doing, whereas many other platforms are still, half foot in the door as to cannabis advertising. And really the only medium for cannabis advertising we have now are websites, and word of mouth. There isn't much public advertising going towards assets. And I think that's very unique as well.
Now, Bill, why is it that you find people are coming to your auction? Is there anything different from what Mick had explained?
Well, let me go back just a little bit. That one of the reasons that we were intrigued and desired to move forward with our relationship with CREC is the reputation of that transparency. We don't want to waste our sellers' time, waste our time, waste a potential buyer's time, if there's unknowns out there that aren't being disclosed. And the cannabis industry has a reputation somewhat for, hiding stuff under the rug. And it was very important to us when we entered in a relationship with CREC, was their reputation. That was very important to us. We just don't want to be going through drills here. And I think that's the biggest issue for us.
Well, I think the advantage, just to touch on to that, is that some clients in this industry just don't know what the rug is. The rug is there from the city or the state. They've thrown that rug on top of all this dirt, and it takes someone that's actually been through that city and knows those rules, or has dealt with the state and can decipher what's hidden under that rug. And unfortunately, that's kind of where a lot of deals go to die in cannabis. And that's the speciality and the professionalism we want to bring to support this platform.
Now, I want to bring it all full circle. And I think at this time, if anyone has any other questions, please do send them all in. Thank you guys for your questions already. We'll probably be wrapping in about 10-15 minutes. But the title was, how do these auctions maximize ROI? And so I want to go back to that topic, and kind of what I'm hearing is that ROI might not necessarily mean that you make more than what you assumed before or what you originally had it listed for. ROI only comes when you actually close the deal. Otherwise, it's only expected income. And so I think that that's what I'm hearing in some ways, is that you maximize ROI because you're closing the transaction and getting to the point. Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah, I think ROI is somewhat interchangeable with value, and but there's certainly a difference. It doesn't matter where you entered. What it matters is the reality of where you are now, and the auction will determine that. I mean, it's real time.
And the other, concept of ROI I was thinking is for people who want to buy land and are okay with buying properties that aren't licensed yet, or are in an upcoming territory and are not yet high value. And so they can get in at a lower price for that land, and it's not necessarily licensed. They're not worrying about the business transaction. They're getting in because they know that that parcel or that location will eventually be a viable property.
Sure. See, that's where you need to rely on CREC, because they can bring that added value in. So they buy the piece of land for $1 million, but after CREC gets done with it, it's worth 2 million. That's the value add right there.
Exactly.
The land is still the land. It's the expertise that's brought to the table that makes it that more valuable.
I think that tie-in is very important. And it alludes to a lot of different clientele, right? Someone that's trying to get something operational themselves, or someone that's trying to flip it and make a profit as a speculative investor of some sort, or just those general multi-state operators that want to get something that has the ability to meet the type of demand they're trying to build for. All three of those are probably the three biggest type of clients that are going to be interested in this. And it all ties into the viability of a piece of land and what it can actually become. That due diligence being presented by CREC to all the people that are participating in the auction. And then an entry point in value, and then an exit point in value is something we can have a discussion with, depending on what that particular buyer wants. Because it also just depends what you're trying to do with it. So sometimes that number can vary depending on the budget of the buyer and what they're willing to develop it to, whether it's just getting it licensed, building a certain structure, building multiple structures, and subdividing the land. There's so much you can do with this real estate. You just need someone that can tell you what can be done. And I think that's what it is going to make this a very interesting platform, is the leapfrogging into all the additional value that can be done and having a clear understanding how to get there.
Wonderful. I'm going to leave it open for 5-10 more minutes of questions. Bill, can you please walk us through the platform and getting people signed up? And if people want to look at the documentation, how do they click through? What's the registration page?
Sure. Well, let's go back. If you type into your browser crec.fre.com, it'll bring you to this page. This is the home page. And again, we're just launching this program, so we don't have a lot of properties up, and we're never going to have hundreds and hundreds. But that's all you have to do is go to this site. You go to sellers or brokers or buying up here at the top, and you register and reach out. You'll either hear back from Mick, or you'll hear back from myself or one of my people, and we'll talk. It doesn't matter if you're on the buy side or the sell side. We're in the marketing business, and that's what'll happen.
Could you click through to show us?
Can I do what?
Can you click through to show us? Go to the buying page, or
Yeah,
scroll down?
yeah. You got talks about the two platforms. We talked about the auction and the auction plus. This one has no contingencies, and this one does allow for contingencies. And then the little pitch on determining value, and then you're ready to get started. And you tell us who you are, and you're going to get a call back very quickly, a response back, typically a phone call initially, and we'll open the dialogue. That's how simple it is. Fill it in, hit submit.
I got another question for you. As a buyer, can you get financing on a property?
You want to answer that one, Mick?
Sure.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a two-part question. I mean, the system, the auction, the reason why the Plus is designed this way is so that financing can be an option. Traditional auctions, that's not something you can do. So this is why a lot of these deals are going to go towards that medium because of the need for financing on these things. Now, the second part turns into, can you find financing for cannabis in this industry? Yes, you can. It isn't, let's say, as affordable as traditional real estate. It isn't as simple, but it's doable. There are a myriad of companies that we work with that provide financing for both hemp and cannabis deals in multiple states. There are groups that can find investors in your deals. We have pools of people that could, joint venture and move onto, particular assets and investments. It really is all over the place. The trick really is having your affairs in an order, understanding that LTVs are going to be more strict on land, more strict than traditional commercial real estate. So your numbers are usually going to be 10 to 15% worse than a traditional bank would be handling financing for you. At least the interest rates are more down in the realm of reality now. We're talking about 5.75 to 8 or 9, depending on the situation. But it is feasible. It's just a lot of work. And I would suggest talking about financing with groups before going into the auction, as sometimes those could take 2, 3, 4 months getting tied up. And then they're like, okay, we understand what you're trying to build. Find us the property, and then we'll start underwriting.
Mick, given the legal status of cannabis federally, do you find that federally chartered and insured institutions are reluctant to give financing on cannabis properties?
Yes, right now, just banking with them is a mission and a half. And there are a few of them that are starting to do kind of pilot programs. To give you an idea of how rigorous that process is, getting approved to bank at one of these federally insured banks may take somewhere between 3 to 6 months in just doing. So you can imagine financing through them is probably going to be something that happens soon, regardless of federal legality. They have systems to insulate their businesses from these investments by using, separate entities and stuff like that, but it is going to take a while.
So it's probably more of a personal loan as opposed to a collateralized loan based on a cannabis property. I mean, from what I think I'm hearing.
Yes, it is. More than just personal, it will be traditional financing in the sense of it may be collateralized by that asset and stuff like that. It's not just hard money loan, but they are, they're going to look at it traditional, but their rates and things to cover their risk are going to be different, So a good example of it would be, on a construction loan, they're going to want to see experience with doing construction loan. They're never going to give a construction loan to someone who's never done construction. It's just not going to happen, right? So there's going to be these additional layers of things that you're going to have to go through to qualify for these things. But it is more than possible that you can get financing that is collateralized by the asset, not on the personal side. And it really comes down to your personal finances on the strength of not just your business plan and previous experience, but really how strong you are financially on your own.
Right.
Any other comments that you remember from our original conversations that we not yet covered today? A lot of great information.
Tell everybody out there, bring on your deals. Let's talk.
We're actively looking for more auctions to add to the platform. And, we should be pushing out 2 or 3 in the next month. And, we hope to really prove that this model works so everyone else feels confident to jump on board.
Absolutely. And, if you guys have any questions, feel free to, email us after this, contact us at info@CREC or the FRE contact website or contact information. The whole goal of this is that we want to educate the public as to how it works, whether you're a buyer, seller, or broker, and of course, continue to add assets, onto this platform. if you are a broker with a lot of land and you want to really create more value for clients, I think this is the easiest thing to do, because I can easily give you a yes or no on the value of that land, whether it's zoned or not, how it's going to work. And then that would probably be one of the best things to throw on this new auction platform, because it's the most cleanest. Additionally to that, feel free to reach out to us with any questions. We're happy to take any more while the webinar is still going.
I think that's good. We're approaching about an hour at this time. Bill, any last words?
No, thank everybody for attending today and hope to do business with you.
All right, Miklos, thank you for joining us.
It was a pleasure. And
Bill,
thanks everyone for your time today.
yes, thank you everyone for joining. We will be
And-
posting the recording and sending an email out to our list. Thank you so much. Have a great day, everyone.